areas here. For this, shall we say, special side event, Global Sea, I would like to welcome especially an excellent of the General Secretary of the Peace for the translation of the funds is a Mosby and director of the museum. He will talk a lot of no better. We have my friend of mine, of course, Secretary Francis, and then our distinguished guests and who have graciously accepted the invitation of Italis to join us and discuss very delicate issue that I think is coming again and again in our agenda, which is the future of Europe under the circumstances and in relation also to its neighboring policies. And first, probably the distinguished honorable personality, Ambassador Harald College, and I might dare say also a friend with whom we have worked faster, the usual diplomat for the young foundation, which I must admit we managed to have a repeatedly represented in also, and is the president of government or the governing board of the European University in Egypt. I want to mention myself, but I'll mention the government, I mentioned them, yeah. Then Professor Giorgos Paris, Assistant Professor for International Relations and Political Economy, Department of Mediterranean Studies at the University of Asia, which is located in Rhodes. Thank you. As the real, but lucky, or shall I say, locally, right? The European Studies of International Relations and the lecturer of the doctoral researcher at the University of Asia. Then, my dear friend Vasily Golikov, who came from Varno, Estonia, program director of Silamai Society for Child Welfare, political scientist, by studies in international language, international nations. And then we have Giannico, a lawyer, and Supreme Court, who shall have the European law, member of the Executive Board of the Union of the European Federalists, very handy, and something issues I think would be that's very relevant to your interest. That's the first Secretary General of the Saloniki International Model United Nations in 2023, President of the UNESCO Youth Club of Thessaloniki, head of the Scientific Committee of the House of Europe in Rhodes, and in charge of the Joint Monnet Project, EU, EYSYP, Strategy of Youth Policies in the EU. The event is organized by the Organizing Committee of the Rosen Sea and the European Directive of Southeast Germany with the support of the Museum of Modern Technology. Now, a little bit of having initial presentation by our distinguished guest partner, I would like to just provoke directions and issues, and then probably a first reaction on their behalf, and then the process will also feel free to ask whatever is hopefully within it. Keep the question short, and the answers will be around 3 to 4 minutes each one. So I guess the first major issue is where we have probably our starting point is Europe at large, and with a special reference a little bit to the European Union as an institution, but definitely Europe is more than all of us. But by saying that, we always tend to keep in mind that our neighborhood of Europe neighborhood is as much of concern to us as much of the others. From that perspective, the European neighborhood, either the east or the south, the Mediterranean remains a point of concern, and nothing is more obvious than the crisis the war that is in Ukraine and in relation to Russia, of how things that happen in Europe affect all 100 and a direct effect, not only in our neighborhood, but all over. So I guess this would be one of the issues that would really constrain us here and discuss it. I would like to see if I can understand, if I can realize some directions. I would say, what are the challenges ahead? So, and what are the answers that are given? What are the current developments that affect those issues? What are the potentials of these facts? Just for the sake of Europe, which we all name as our home, is one of the entities, one of the continents with an aging population. This is something that definitely affects the future. But while on the one hand we have such condition, at the same time the influx of refugees does not be always either used properly or accepted. And on the contrary, in many cases we have some of the elements of Europeans not very happy about, even though this is might be also viewed as something that might save Europe in the long run. And then, of course, the center that exists at the bottom. So, the first question or dimension I would like to ask CJ is start with the notion of that's something very clear. And is whether we have really the direction of what might be done is that the last years we have experienced 9 and 10 economic crisis, a health crisis, and then an energy crisis, which all of them, according to some arguments, might illustrate that there is a more need for the data of action rather than our existing. So the question is whether the federalists have an answer or the federalist parliament is really the way ahead. Nonetheless, at the same time, we can see that there is a reaction by many countries, by many populists about this power process. So I might recognize here a kind of the difference or a kind of friction between those two trends. So this is something that I would like to acknowledge whether there is a real contradiction with this. And the other, which I would like to see as more a challenge, or actually more as something provocative, is that some argue that I think Macron is one of the first arguing that probably the European Commission or the European Union should have a more realistic, a complete approach. And the question is, in that respect, by mentioning, it's probably they have to approach some of the major powers worldwide, some of the major institutions, in order to strengthen the position of the European Union. So can that really exist without compromising values and principles upon which the European Union is based? And by reflection, something that we would like to see in the Mediterranean series, Mediterranean basin, develop in some that follows that. So, Stephen, now back to you, and I will come back to some questions for hopefully none of me, and who would like to start? And because of the feminist approach.
Well, first of all, let me thank you. I need to do an introduction. So let me thank you for our presentation and the opportunity to be here on all these experts in this panel. Myself being a founding member of the House of European Roads, and I was honored to participate here as member of the first organized committee of the Roads MRC in 2011. I have to say that since 2011, this has been an institution, and just reading the international organizations and regional organizations that support the roads in MRC, this means that it has been a successful institution. So I need to do this introduction. It's very, very important, and then I will try to reply. So before answering the Trump gave some answer, I must admit that when I received the invitation by the House Committee about the future of Europe and the neighborhood and its neighborhood, the first thought is, this future of Europe is uncertain. And then, what is the implication for the neighborhood? So, I argue that we do not have the time, we do not have the answers, and what we're going to try to do today is just exchange some ideas and some thought, and to see whether we are working on the right direction. So, being federalist myself, I do believe that this is a historic moment that more federalism gives more replies to all the current issues. And we have seen that. We have seen that especially in the pandemic and in the reply and in the Europe's reaction to the war in Ukraine. We have seen that more federalism, more common actions are we have more direct and replies and reactions to what is needed today. So this is a first general approach, and I don't. It's more like an introduction to a general question that you have asked me. So I don't know whether we want to sort of this, and if someone else would like to reply, and then come back to that.
President is a lawyer and head of public international and European law. First George
Thank you very much. Well, also, my part would like to thank the President of House of Europe and all the members and the General Secretary and of course you, the opportunity to be together with this excellent panel. And of course, very impressed by the subject because it's very important nowadays, all of us, to open a debate concerning the future of Europe. But it's very crucial, and we know that because after the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, well, now Europe is facing two dilemmas. The one is the one or deeper. So, as you can see, I was referring to the same subject. I was not informed because I think that there is no point to be at this dilemma because Europe has to go on also on the procedure of wider Europe and also deepening Europe. What I want to say is that this war shows a lot of weaknesses in Europe, the field of course security, in the field of energy, economic clearance between member states, etc. But on the other hand, shows the relationship with the neighbor. I mean, after this invasion, Europe has to see in another way the negative policy, the European negative policy, and of course, the accession procedure. And that's why that after the Union led in June 2022, the grand candidate statement, Ukraine and Moldova, showing that Union is conscious of the extent to which the new geopolitical situation requires and determined action, and the EU needs a new approach to structure the relations with the neighbors. On this question, because as I told you, there is a big dilemma if Europe is to be in a deeper way or more wider on the frame of the enlargement. Well, I think that the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they have stressed, and they gave an answer to that, talking about redesigning the European Union at two levels. And this is the main point, and I think I will start with that and give the floor to the others. First of all, the relation with its neighborhood. As all acknowledge that enlargement is necessary, but on the other hand, they emphasize that Europe is profound institutional goals, exactly because this requires beforehand both deepening and widening the EU and complex processes that better players could block. And that means that if you reform EU with 36 members and only the current candidate countries to the current EU 27 would be completely dysfunctional. It would be overridden by the European Parliament and hopelessness fragmented executive. So it's necessary condition for the enlargement includes government reforms in terms of the scope of qualified authority, involving the distribution of seats in the European Parliament and the allocation of posts as executive powers within the European Commission, the Council of the European Union, and more issues should be addressed and should be at the heart of the reform of the treaties. And then the second part that I would like to mention is that the new initiatives are development and I think that in this historical momentum, this is important to consider also the role of the new initiative of the EU, the European Political Community, which is something, let's say, new, not really, but sounds new to us, because in 1998 there was also the same initiative, but it was not called European Political Community, and as we know, the first time was in October 2022. And the ACP, when I read the conclusions, well, whatever it was part of, don't really know a lot of things, what was behind the doors. So in this thesis, there was an initiative to provide a Euro concept that was a term of European Council conclusion involving all Euro, that is in the EU, or aim to join or open to cooperation with the other states to know. The importance of this initiative consists to how it can work as a catalyst in the next steps of the integration process. Meaning what that the ECP will give the simple, or we can say, of dissatisfied European countries after the course of their accession process, if we accept, of course, that the EU will proceed with the theory of consent title, as we know, I'm also part of the journalist, and I really truly believe that this time I'll go on. And on the other hand, the EPC would be a suitable response to the new geopolitical situation and also help address the EU's internal deficiencies and the challenges in its neighborhood. So the vision of such an EU world is simply not have a single all-encompassing vision, but instead accept the member states and even the European citizens have different views. So I think that now is the time for EU to decide the next steps, being what? Are we still staying with the vision, the mega vision of the meaning on all things, the motto that all things in one, or shall we start to reconsider our future, meaning that maybe we have to start to think about the different speeds. And of course, that's why I said that the APC maybe could help this movement of Europe, because it's very important to take charge of the geopolitical challenges, meaning that we have to ensure the stability in our neighborhood. We have to limit the blackmailing power of external authoritarian states facing this period, and of course to support more resilient democracy and strengthening the rule of law in our neighborhood, first of all. So if we're going to talk about a global Europe, a global actor, I think that first of all we have to be strong in our neighborhood, meaning that we have to go on. We cannot be in this situation. I mean, one step in front and 10 back. We have to decide what to do. So I think that now the time to follow the vision of the great architect of the union, but maybe with not this big idea, the big vision, but redesigning our vision and following all the theories for the integration, maybe choosing the circle theory, and I know that the state, maybe all the other panelists could join in that. They have something they advanced concerning the next steps. Good. So I think that all of us here as a community, as the European, then have answered to this question: what do we want, and how do we think that we can go on? So this is what I would like to say. I'll also like to hear your questions in the.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing, and just as real, the diverse nature of our panels. We have activists, we have NGO and civil society representatives, we have representatives of the academia, we have representatives of the legal entity, and we have someone who is some, what the West Bend attack. So we have different perspectives, and in that respect, first of all, would anyone would like to add or develop elaborate the question of curriculum, or can we move on and see the perspective from different areas? So, the ambassador, what we've noticed here, and it was mentioned after the invasion, is it looks as if an ideation of parliament dropped in the good war, bad war, the Mediterranean regimes, and in that respect, while the Mediterranean seems to be our neighborhood, number of the countries that result, on the other hand, probably we can see them either directly or indirectly, not exactly silent, but keeping a very open or very curious stance of the invasion. This is one issue, and how can we perceive them? Even this one, and the paradigm that the European side presents as the space or as the moving ahead for this coexistence and cooperation, and what are the assets that we believe that are very important in this time.
Thank you very much. I thought we agreed that we give you the easy questions, but you changed your mind. Anyway, so good evening to you all, and I'm very, very pleased everyone here to be part of this discussion. And I thank the House of European roles for organizing this event, particularly my good friend Michael. In order to answer your question, I really would like to say that, in fact, we need to look at the causes of what we see today back in several, I would say, decades, even. But I'm not going to go back to the genesis to explain this, but just take a few steps back. After the war in Afghanistan, all of the Persian War, we noticed for maybe few years, the situation where the world was controlled under the direction of one single power. But we also slowly started to see a shift in that policy. And with the arrival of President Clinton, the White House, we started to see a different approach to world affairs. I think the policy in those days was termed as lead from behind, meaning that the United States will let other maybe emerging regional powers to take the lead for regional issues, and then the United States will be there following the developments and maybe redirecting when things needed to be redirected. Then we also saw the terrorist attacks in the early 2000s, which have brought numerous new considerations to the international scene. And of course, all this was added to the major crisis that we have witnessed in talking about the prime 2008, where basically the world economy was faced with a major earthquake. This had brought a lot of people to start questioning the system. Because it was the first time that the system was basically trusted to solve the issue, but they failed. And it needed to be repaired, or it needed some kind of new elements to get the engine started under new conditions. We all thought that the globalization would solve the issues of the world. It did not. And particularly, it became evident with the pandemic that globalization was part of the problem rather than the solution. We also saw during that pandemic reflexes that we thought had disappeared, or we thought that we had passed them. We saw them coming back. In the case of Europe, we saw the notion of border re-emerging. We saw also a very, at the beginning at least, a very shy sign of or show of solidarity among European countries at the very early stages of the pandemic. Then, thank God, things came back to normality. But then, within all of this, we started seeing, hearing, proposals to reshape the international scene and the international, I would say, governance. We have heard all of you, I'm sure that you have been familiar with the Belt and Road Initiative from China. You certainly are familiar with the Global Gateway from the European Union. The Americans also presented their own plan of the 3DW, Build Back Better World. Then you have the European with the new neighborhood or southern neighborhood policy, that launched I think about a year and a half ago. And of course, from the Davos Forum, the new reset proposal by Schwab. Now, if you look at all those components, you understand that we are really at the beginning of a new international order. Something is changing and changing radically. Now, I made all this presentation just to arrive to Europe. Europe finds itself in the middle between two major blocks. On the one hand, you have the United States and all the allies, and you have China and Russia on the other hand. So where does Europe stand? And I think it's important that the role of Europe is determined. What role can Europe play to be basically the balance between those two giants? Is Europe going to play the role of the normative power with its very large market, or is it going to tip the balance to one side against the other without really full knowledge of what would happen? Then again, also, where does European defense capacity stand? We have seen it come back to the surface with the war in Ukraine. But this is not new. It is something that has been discussed for several years. And I do not see this happening even now, even with this crisis. On the other hand, I see that NATO will become even stronger, will become a major power in Europe when it comes to the defense and security issues. Politically speaking, and in terms of international positioning, if you look at the world, you have, on the one hand, you have the United States with its market present in the Americas, South America, Central America. You have Asia, I mean China, and you can include also Russia there, with its Asian market, Asian depth. For you, what remains? Africa. That's the only territory that remains for you, which leads me to show the importance of a very straightforward, but also very voluntary policy towards Africa in general, not only the southern shore of the Mediterranean, because even though that's really the point of entry, but the general continent of Africa. And it is very important that Europeans really heed the signal that are coming now out of Africa, where a lot of African countries are sort of like shifting their position, going more towards Russia, whether it is because of direct involvement of Russia or through the Wagner group, but there is this is a new reality in Africa. I mean, in countries like Senegal, Mali, Central Africa, Chad, Niger, all these countries were, first of all, part of the French scene in general, but more, I would say, on the western side. And this is changing. This is really changing. And I see it every time I travel through African countries. The three spoke about the need for Europe to really go deeper and wider. And I think, yes, absolutely. This thinking and this really brainstorming needs to happen, because I believe that Europe needs to reinvent itself, really needs to find its place in this major, tempted to use the word confrontation between the two blocks. And Europe has a role to play. But I think also Europe needs to have its own personality, its own character, its own view, its own policy, and its own ambition and its own inspiration. Europe has been the center of a lot of events in the past, and I think it will remain one major player, and it has a vital role to play in this new confrontation between the two big blocks that we are seeing today. And I hope that this brainstorming starts very quickly, because I must say that time is not on our side, unfortunately, because losing support within the population of certain countries is something that can happen quickly, but needs a long time to be restored.
I will answer my question, but you won't get away with it. As you, I have seen that all the meetings that are established have to do with the national organizations, regional organizations, where the presence of Europe is there. So I will give you a little bit of time to think and just reflect a bit on what has been a collective presence of the European Union into those regional organizations that you have been working with in the last few days. And don't tell me that you haven't developed a certain perspective, because then there's something wrong with the whole system. So, but you, really at the end, I would like to comment from the perspective of the country that came from the East, and therefore the Eastern neighbor on one hand, while from the second dimension, I would like to ask them, what do they see as the major challenges, that shall we say, the social challenges that exist in Europe, whether they are a threat that Europe has not managed to deal, or whether Europe is well equipped to deal with them and therefore present a paradigm of how exactly we face it. So, having with the floor to you and give us, exact perspective from the north and the east.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you for resolution. Anyway, I'm very happy to be here second time. I'm really pleased that some international participants from the Nordic countries and also Eastern Europe, as I still can see right now, politically, could be presented here. Quite a lot on my papers here, what I'd like to say. But if you let me start by very briefly to say something about raise question like realpolitik of Macron, or whether we will achieve, for example, energy deal, green policy, energy deal by 2050. To be honest, I have a very different background, not only working in civil society, but also working in the government before. It's quite difficult to say yes, but I'm not saying no, because we still believe that we could achieve this, at least green policy energy. And honestly, for my country right now, President the European Commission just recently visited Narwa. Some of them were there. This is the eastern city border of the European Union, which is the quite interesting city. And I'm telling you that the problem is that the energy price is coming on, and we already see that a lot of people will very soon lose their jobs because the transition which the European Union started is influencing also the people on the local level. But I'm quite pessimistic for a moment with the current situation which is happening in the world market with energy, and especially the influence of Russian intervention in Ukraine and American elections and the gas issues in the Baltic Sea and Black Sea. As you know, there's things happening. So regarding the why Europe, for me, the dilemma is that Europe needs to be more independent and be more independent economically, security, and social. America just recently also have repeated that we could not build a safer Europe and secure Europe without good relations with all the nations who are bordering the European Union. So, and for me, it's also understandable that we are bordering with Russia, as all the other countries, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Poland, etc. And we see the different influence on our country. As in Tordola, we have a lot of Russian-speaking people who depends on the information which we receive from abroad. And the role of the European Union in building to sustainable and secure Europe will be bigger, for sure. And it's to start from, I remember that Macron was proposing the more secure, independent forces, something like that, right? That was agenda to build own forces, not only rely on NATO. And the second thing is strategic partnership and contributing, of course, with all the interest bodies in this journey. And of course, security could be built could not be based on the ground of the other countries' securities. So we have to take into account that we have interdependence of each other. And if someone is moving his forces over somewhere over there, let's say Ukraine or any other place, that will move the whole picture and could bring a more chaos in the world. So I for sure would like to hear more peace talks on the high level and also the peace within the society. Because one of the challenges right now, what I see myself, for like 2 years, we're running a big program of review with 12 countries, including Greece, that we have seen a lot of problems with migrants, minorities who are suffering right now, not because of their nationality or any phobias, but also because of the people are really understanding what is happening right now, and especially the media welfare we see also. So to conclude, we have to keep in mind that European needs to stay in as a democratic union of states with respect to fundamental rights of each person who lives regardless his nationality, gender, political interest, and so on. From the perspective of Eastern European, as you mentioned, yes, history, I do hope will not repeat, that Taliban will be finally collapsed. Yes, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland has a very different experience with dealing with Russia. Russia, as the Soviet Union, or right now Russia. But what we have to take into account that talking to the civil society, it's one of the issues what the government needs to do. And talking openly, even we have a problems, and let's say energy crisis, the problem within society caused by this, even Rusophobia. Even in my country, I could admit that there are some cases that the people who are by nationality, they basically are citizens of this country, but they are right now suffering because you are belong culturally to that, let's say, country who are right now working very heavily on the stage. So, from the perspective of Eastern European countries, we see that our countries need more help, information help, communication help within the EU, because we see very different EUs. So one EU, it's old Europe, which develops very quickly, and another Europe is New Europe, which is mostly Eastern European countries, like those who are Germany recently, Croatia, etc. So the question is, if we want to have a peaceful and sustainable future of Europe, so we need to find out the balance between those two Europes. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. I will try as much as possible to answer your questions, Petros, for the challenges in the citizen. I'll have to say from the perspective of the lawyer, biggest challenges are the rule of law and citizens engagement. Although from the citizens' perspective, I would say that the two main challenges are citizens' participation and the social work. And that's the issue, the distance that we have, this gap that we have, because you can sit here theorizing about Europe and the structure of business, but when our citizens are faced with survival problems, of course, they will choose to go with the voice that expresses them, and that, of course, is the general see their governments rising, unfortunately, in the part. And because they vow to address those issues. Now, coming to a few points that previous speakers stressed, Europe cannot exist without its neighborhood, neighboring countries. Of course, ENP, the European policy, is equal to the European Union. The European Union has highlighted that. Of course, we need the investment balance. Of course, we need trade with engage those standards. Of course, we need to engage other continents such as Africa. Because in Europe, we tend to pretend that the crown of the jewel. The European Union pretends that it's the only organization, regional organization that exists, so that's no matter. Efforts have been made in America since the very 1800s. In Africa, there are other regional organizations that have introduced civil currency, of course, it's in a better place to know those issues. But in Europe, we've made a quite complex architectural issue. But as a professor of mine back in Belgium used to say, now he's in charge for the justice, the union is like a Titanic. While it was sinking, the crew was just shuffling the seats. I think that that's the issue. We tend to overemphasize the issues that we have in internal. We look at the external policies more like the students and they, is the picture, or we look at the other partners as disadvantages and all that to be excused for this race. This is the case. We saw that in the migratory crisis where the EU chose to outsource the crisis in a certain extent. Of course, that wasn't very successful, but that's the theory. And very recently, it is interesting, we have the COVID crisis, and one would expect that you would react in a very timely manner, that it would have answers, because we are living in the last 2 decades, many crises, one after the other. But unfortunately, it reacted again as deer in headlights. Like this has never happened before. We show disoriented in the beginning of this. Which begs the question, where do we go now? Usually, those kinds of families, very close with the those positions. Usually, one of the families will then say, you will collapse. And that's a very naive statement. Of course, that's a very naive statement. When you have big organizations, big administrations, they gain independence, though they gain autonomy, legal personality. It's not like a hard, like you have a team, a basketball team, and every member puts their hands together and they can take it back in hands and then you will go out. No, it doesn't work like that. But on the other hand, you don't know where it's going. And very recently, the conference, the future of Europe, concluded. And there were many proposals, 49, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of 300 measures proposed, including executive change. And the three institutions reacted. So the council said, well, this concluded back in June. The council reacted in July. Well, they said this is too much for us. For the time being, we will only technically assess the proposals. They didn't take any position. The commission, on the other hand, said, well, you know what we like? From the conference, we really like that we have citizens participation. We really like that we had the panels of citizens, where there was a gender balance, where there was diverse background of people participating, and we want that in our policies in the future. That's basically saying, asking a student at school, what's your favorite subjects? And they answer food. Or we like the conference. Everyone is going to go there again. But the parliament alone, and that is most interesting, proposed changes in the treaties, changes that are dealing with social pillar social rights, the energy union that we should have, monetary union, and of course, taking inspiration from everything that has occurred until now, utilizing these new powers under Article 48 of the European Union. And that's the most interesting. I don't see that they will go forward. I don't see that they will go forward with the treaty change. But I will tell you one the last remark, which is indicative. In all, at least in most international instruments, international legal tests, there's and constitutions, there's a state of emergency where a role is created in case the executive or at least the decision-making power needs to take emergent action. In the treaties, there's none. There's mutual assistance in the case of natural disaster, but there's none. And the same thing occurs in the rules of procedure of institutions. The only institution that had specific rules was the parliament, because it was used to being cyclized, to be based or treated like it was a, having it as a privilege or time consuming engagement. So usually they request for the parliament to make it fast. So it comes to the commission had to adopt new rules in order to make it possible for them to decide during the COVID crisis. That shows that we're not there yet, or at least we're not learning from the paradigms and the examples that we have so far. I think I will stop here. Now, give the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very kind invitation. I'm very happy and glad to being here in this venue. Actually, we are here since 2010. So it's a very nice moment to see that the conference, the roads must be get bigger and bigger, and despite the difficulties that have faced the last year, it will grow again, and hopefully till next year will be double as we are today here. And of course, since I was introduced to you by one of my capacities, that would be the Secretary General of Salonic International Student Model of the United Nations for 2023, which is going to be the 20th edition and anniversary for us as well. Then the Roman Battles will take part there. Talking about simulation processes, and as Manuel Cavafistes more or less mentioned what I would also mention, trying to answer that question. I'd like to focus mostly on the youth perspective, and actually the youth organization within civil society, and this will be my approach at the moment. Talking about civil society, although the simulation processes are more activities which are introduced only through the civil society, but also they're introduced through the academia. I'd like to mention that it is a very useful tool and a very powerful actual tool to contribute to the ideas of federalism and of the promotion of the values of Europe, because I suppose that the majority of people here today, we're here because we believe in the strength of the European institutions and the values, and that's why we're here trying to answer questions, indicate the challenges, and see what the future could be. And first, and of course, what kind of future we want as well, in order to reply to this question. Regarding youth in the European Union, in the European area in general, because you may already know that the European Union has a very strong cooperation with the oldest organization in Europe, the Council of Europe, in the field of youth, and there is an established partnership on youth between the two international organizations in Europe. Therefore, it is a topic that matters a lot, the international institutions in our region. In Europe, in the European Union, in 2018, the youth strategy of the European Union was adopted. I will not say anything else about the strategy because it's available online and everybody has access to check the main points. What is interesting is that more or less it was the outcome of a youth dialogue process talking about future, which is recently launched in general, the dialogue of the citizens for the future of Europe. Going back before this, let's say, initiative, which is quite recent. In 2018, the European Youth Dialogue process has been implemented, has been launched, where more than 50,000 young European citizens took part and indicated the priorities that they would like to see in a common adopted document by the European Union. The first goal is that has been indicated was when connecting the European Union with youth, and in specific to foster the sense of belonging to the European integration project. I don't like the term project, but I just read what it was exactly indicated, and to build a bridge between the EU and the young people in order, this is the most important part for me, to regain trust to the institutions and to increase participation. So this would be more or less the most important challenges facing, at least indicated by the young citizens of the European Union at the moment. And this should be addressed. What is quite interesting and yet a paradox is that while at the same time through surveys that run in the European Union region, there is indicated a lack of trust the EU institutions by among young people, and actually after the economic crisis, after the pandemic, it increases this type of lack of trust. On the other hand, we noticed that there is an increase in the participation of young people, of young European citizens, in the various initiatives that are provided thanks to the European Union funding. This is the very hopeful, let's say the optimistic aspect, and it is a paradox. This means that young people and focusing on the citizens in Europe, the young citizens are more or less split somehow in the middle to those who are not interested at all, and they think that they are not affected by the positive aspects of the union. This is also a matter of fact that some of them, some of you are so young, we're so young that do not really understand how the situation, how the way of living, the conditions of living were before, let's say, even 2000 or even 1992, the mass living, etc. So this is also a reason why young people may feel that they are not interested, that the European Union has nothing to offer to them. But on the other hand, more and more people take advantage of the Erasmus program, travel around to visit other universities, to work abroad, and of course to improve their skills and to, let's say, strengthen their personal profile in terms of their educational and their employment background later on. Talking about the people, the most important, let's say, social challenges that they may indicate, of course, is the unemployment, of course, the lack of education initiatives, despite the fact that the European Union provides a lot of opportunities, and something which may be really important, but we may not notice the importance of it, the gap between the generation. So this means that we need to focus on to have engagement, rest. I need an intergenerational dialogue because this is at least to my point of view, to increase the youth environment and the youth participation in the processes in order to change a bit the situation and try to put the young people in the decision-making process.
Thank you very much. Any question, audience, no, ready? And taking this opportunity, I would also like to, because is to think how relevant is it really to you, the Euro and what people see, what you expect, not from such institutions, but from your presence in this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question will be asked. Last month, the United Nations formed the United Nations Youth Office, and I would want to know your opinion. We should really a similar institution as we see that in some years. Other reasons are different. Saying that the European Union in general has started to cooperate with other organizations in Africa, like the International Red Cross and the World Organization in China.
Thank you. This is I would like to ask something about the use. During was satisfied that many people, for the students who are actually more passionate for European Union offers, and so people that are actually eager to make a change. People who are able to make an impact on the local community, in other words, the global community as well. So, singular discussing the future of Europe, and since we are also discussing, since students are future citizens, what are your expectations from the youth, from people like us, those here related to the investment of youth participating in such affairs, and how can we actually actively contribute in all this procedure, despite the difference between the integration of Europe. Thank you.
That's great.
And I'm glad to ask anyone who's interested in answering. Since we're talking about the picture of Europe, we see that the far right movements are on the rise. There are also national governments in important countries like Sweden or Italy, maybe more will follow. What do you believe are the causes of this?
Very happy. Welcome you to come and love and from growth. Even though I had the chance to be a European before really the institutions were established, in the sense that I have studied on growth, studied Italy, France, England, and the States. So I do have a perception what the European is. Now the difference yet between myself and most have I'm sorry, and you for is that during our period of thinking about Europe, we were searching for Europe, and in a big extent, we have created Europe with its institutions, with its positive outcomes, with its problems. But after all, we have to think that if it takes a century for a cathedral, the think of Familia Sagrada, Spain, it should take a bit longer for an international institution such as Europe. So I think we should stay very optimistic about the outcome. What makes me optimistic that while we're constructing Europe,
we were missing in the past 2 years. Now, the difference is that here today, you are the European because you are the children of Erasmus. That makes you be a European. I was a Greek in France. I was maybe half French and half Greek in Italy. I was a European while I was in Europe in the States, but you are Europeans in your own continent. And this is a big difference. And this is, I think, what makes me extremely hopeful about the future of Europe. What we expect from you is just to take care of your mother Europe, which has given us peace, prosperity, peace so far at least, and we see how hard it is to handle on this peace. So I believe that you will be the ones who will defend peace because it is your own place. You are the first Europeans, and I count a lot on your contribution. I thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Now, I give you the goal of just one add. One of them is one of the, let's shall I say, the dynamics and one of the crisis is whether the one we have already mentioned is the principles and values vis-a-vis environmental policy, one we just been about. The other one, the current one, is the energy security and sufficiency vis-a-vis environmental consideration and performance vis-a-vis the relation to the SDGs. And the final one has to do a little bit with actually a challenge to you is that I consider, many consider that there is a democratic deficit in relation to the power of the administration process. So all that we have described in opening up and the bottom-up process can really function in such a way that it will have. And just a very brief note, not in response to you, is that things are a little bit more complicated. My question is, the continuation of your question is whether this rise of excellence is the result or does it have to do with the European growth or that have domestic roots in that respect. And just to make it complicated, final report that shows a very contradictory picture. While we have rounds of populists, and I included that in Russia, the ultra right wing and the ultra left expression, in other countries we have exactly what. So it's a very picture. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to respond to the questions that because I have to confess that I'm on the fourth week that I face a serious infection with my right ear, and it's a bit difficult for me to hear very well. So I think I understand well the first question. With the second, I'll try to elaborate. Regarding if I got your point is that if the international organizations are shifting to cooperation regarding the youth agenda, that is a prayer. Well, first of all, I have to say that the United Nations more or less followed the European institutions in the way that of course, the United Nations is the umbrella organization for all the institutions, at least from my point of view. However, they have such a wide spectrum, and therefore it's not always easy to elaborate. On the other hand, as with Europe and the European Union, since almost the beginning, they have focused on policies that help to deal with children and young people in the region, in our region. However, all the organizations, I would say, the United Nations, UNESCO, Council of Europe, European Union have developed youth agendas and youth strategies, which is very important. You have mentioned the United Nations Office on Youth. It's a very important initiative. Actually, the United Nations has appointed UN Youth in Poland, which is under the UN Secretary General, it's quite important to see that they have put the topic of youth on a very high level in the agenda. They're doing good stuff and they're trying to bring changes. For example, to put an end in the unpaid internships. That's something that affects a lot of young people worldwide. And of course, they have many kinds of partnerships among with other organizations. It's interesting to hear that different organizations that we may not expect, like the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, has a field policy and a field directorate and implements activities that are directly related to you. I don't know, maybe I say that the organizations in Europe are the most effective ones, but maybe because we are here and we see every day in our everyday lives the positive effects. So I don't want to say that in other regions things do not take place because in other continents, of course, there are similar initiatives, but it's at least optimistic to see that the international organizations recognize the need to put youth high on their agendas. Of course, what is important is not only to put youth on the agenda in terms of preaching and very nice preambles and I don't know, declarations about how youth should participate in the processes of decision making or should recognize the various positions or to be given more rights or whatever. What is important is this to become a reality. To this end, if I understand well the second question, it is very crucial the role of all of you. In which sense? The sense that by participating in these initiatives like a simulation conference that you are participating these days, or in other kind of groups like local, municipal youth councils, regional youth councils, other kind of initiatives, youth organizations, civil society organizations, etc., within the academia, the students' councils, or the various organizations within the universities like the ELSA that has to the faculty of law or others that are polytechnic schools and so on. All these participation puts does the steps towards the how to say to be given more access, all of you, to the policy making processes and the change. Because to be honest, it is not that one day a government, a local or national or European come and say, we have developed this strategy, and by this strategy, young people will participate in the policy making processes, and the next stage this will happen. Changes have to happen at the lower level and then move up the upper, let's say, final level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it was very clear.
Yes, of course. I will remind you what Jean Monnet said. He said that Europe won't be done one day, but it will be a whole after achievement. So this is the one point. Second point that, as I think mentioned, Europe is our mother. Europe is not the future, but the past, the present, and the future of the world because of the value, because of the prosperity, because of the rule of law, because of democracy, because of the civilization, because of all of that. And we are European citizens. So I think this is a big dimension that we have on this conversation. The European identity, and I'm answering to the questions concerning procedure of the European Union, we have to create European common identity. And this is the main point, and of course, the citizenship, which comes as a second step. But how do we do all that? Education, all these exchanges, the programs, a bottom-up procedure, not a top-down procedure. This is the point. And I'm really fond of the involvement of the local and regional authorities in all this process. The civil society, of course, academics, the experts, etc. But I think that the citizens, the European citizen must be the heart of Europe policies. And I will answer to your question concerning all the right movements, etc., the very dangerous movements in Europe. We have all these movements because Europe, the last decade, because of the economy, recession, and all the pandemic program, and now the war in Ukraine, I think that they lost the goals. We lost all of us, not they, we lost our roadmap. I think that Europe now is it was trying to give more power in her external relations, in her NATO, in her global role as a global actor, in the new the transformation with the technology, with the artificial intelligence, the space, cyberspace, etc., and all that. And she left on the side the social policy, the cohesion policy, because in the decades when we had the prosperity and Europe was really very grown, and with the growth, we had a very strong cohesion policy, which is now not, it's at the side. So that's why I said that Europe is at the crossroad, and she has to answer to the big question: what Europe do we want? What is the future? Of course, we need Europe. We cannot be all of us, not only the Europeans, but also the global community needs Europe. This is for sure. So now we have to see which Europe and which will be the priorities, because Europe cannot be involved in everything. She has to prioritize her politics, and she has, first of all, how do you say, to restate the priorities and to give power to the citizen. And of course, that means that we have to give power to the European Parliament, make the reforms of the treaties, and we have to talk for a stronger Europe with the start, we can start. We need to have a constitution. We have to answer this question. If we want, then of course we will be again here, you will be here, and you will start the same conversation, and maybe we don't know what Europe will have after 10 years. If we won't run, you don't have to leave the problem. We don't have to follow the problems. We have to be ahead and not behind the problems. And this is a problem in Europe in the last decade. Yes, we have to be proud. Thank you. Yes. So for my part, I'm closing. The goal of all the disappointment that the young people had with Europe, and it's very normal that I agree with you. It's very normal to be disappointed with the young people. It's because there's a big gap between the achievement and the expectation. It's their expectation to achieve. This is a problem. The big vision, as I said in my first speaking, the big vision, you're waiting a lot, we're waiting a lot, but then the achievements are not so much. But that doesn't mean that we have to, how do you say, to blame Europe. No, don't have. We have all of us to work for a stronger Europe. So this is my point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Last question. This gives me the opportunity, yes, to express it, because I'm not about the disinformation war that is ongoing in the internal of the European Union. This is a major issue. So the relationship with the wider neighborhood depends on how Europe will deal with the internal pressures of the populism and the threat of the fascism. And there is the war on the Russia. They're faking it. Attempts to exploit election results, funding of political parties and social organizations. Let us talk about this. These are major issues, and this is the biggest challenge that we. So, well, the biggest challenge for Europe will be the next 6 months. We believe that the most difficult winter period is coming ahead. It is not at our door, and at the same time, we have the war in Ukraine that is still there. So, not public companies, but I can see all these challenges. So just to give my final position, because we were talking about other parts of the world, and that maybe, yes, the European Union has been somehow thought that we were the best model. However, let us talk about this extra model, because also Alit Mossi was very possible in describing the last years of our European model. So what is our European model? It is, on the one hand, the prosperity, prosperity, social cohesion, but this is hand in hand with democracy and political freedom. So this is our European model. Yes, we need to resist to the threats, and the threats are very big, and they are there. But at the same time, we have to adapt to a new era, because you were saying that a new era is there. So we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say some few words to you, young man. I remember for myself, we met with Alice of Greece in 2008. I looked like your age, and it was in Torino, we were promoting intercultural dialogue and water issues. And I remember one very good sentence which I have heard: we are not the youngsters, we are not future leaders, we are the future of today. Basically, you are a solution for everything. The use is not a problem, the use is a solution. And believe in that, because you can change everything. You can innovate, you can move some, you will find out a very easy way in some very practical. And one of the solutions, for example, in terms of my country, as you know, we're e-government, e-country, promoting education, but there's a quite well managed, to be honest, with the COVID, and by using these digital resources, and the youngsters didn't go so bad with the grades. And of course, I'm quite, let's say, I'm quite worried about the situation in Sweden and Italy, and it's going to be in my country also. We will have very soon election. And I'm seeing this kind of notice that yes, the far right movements are taking some power. So the major challenge is only within us. It's only that we have to work very hard to stay together, to have more solidarity, and move forward despite the existing challenges. And we're finding a common ground that we will still respect all the fundamental activities and actions and policies what we have agreed. And one of the ones could be also that we maybe have to change some of them. For example, migration and integration programs, because now we have so many refugees, not only from Africa or Central Asia or Middle East, but also from Ukraine, who needs our help to be integrated in the society. Some of them for sure would like to go back home, but some of them already see themselves as a European, and they would like to contribute economically as well, because as you know, 103 million of our population, this is the people with migrant background, and we are more than 500 million. It's a big number who could make contribute internationally. But at the same time, we need to be to have a statement like Qatar or Helmut Kohl in our countries who will lead the European Union and the top positions back. Good luck to everyone, boys.
If you want to add that.
Just one short thing. That's great to be proud of ourselves for taking the place of democracy. In recent years, of course, other things as well. Amongst them, the president syndrome, as we call it. But I would like to see the citizen syndrome as well. I mean, you don't have a title, you don't need to have a function. You have the greatest title of them all, called citizen. You're European. So learn your own. There are many projects. You can call upon your peers to vote. The European Citizens Initiative have the right to petition to the institute. They have the right to contact their representatives. Because you know what? There are people like you, and if you don't go and inform them about your disagreement, your discontent, about their actions, they will think that everything they do is right. And that's a wrong thing. But you have to raise your voice. And there are many instruments. So if you want to, there are many things. And to make a huge.
That's the famous last words. President will be.
Thank you very much. Well, very briefly, really brief, and I will give maybe 3-4 points in general. I would not allow myself to speak on behalf of Europeans. But I will make one last point, a little bit more specific, because it deals with the Southern Neighborhood policy. First of all, in reply to, I think, I don't know who made the comment about the values versus beautiful. I don't think we can agree to choose between the two. The two need to go together, because if we forsake values, we lose moral authority and moral leadership, and that is needed. And if we forsake great politics, we lose efficiency. So the two need to go together. It's a balance that needs to be found so that Europe will carry that double approach in equilibrium. The second point I think deals with the issue of the far right. My answer to that again is for general, does not mean, does not really concern just the far right, but any far wing, whether left or right. I think in a moment of crisis, people develop naturally, say, some fear. Fear about the future, because they don't know what's going to happen to them, to their children, to their families, and of course, the extremes use that. They ride on that wave, and it's very easy for them because they do not need to give any proposal. Very simple. It's very easy. It's an easy time to ride. Now, what can you do to contribute? I believe that you need to keep a very sharp, critical eye and very critical thinking, because this Europe that has been built, as I was saying a little bit earlier, of course, there are a lot of things that need to be changed, corrected, improved, and they need to be improved, because the way you will look at them would be different from the way the generation that built this structure looked at them, and it's only normal. So you have to really apply your own thinking, your own approach to that, and improve them for the better. The other point is about identity. I agree with you. It is very important, whether it is for Europeans, for Africans, for Americans, whatever. There is a need to construct and build an identity. And the identity is not just the fact that somebody is born somewhere that or naturally will carry that identity. Identity is a frame of mind. It is a set of conviction. It is also a predisposition to share the burden, carry the responsibilities. I think that is extremely important. That takes time to establish. The more specific point is about the Southern Neighborhood Policy. I think the first one that was launched a decade ago, I think, for the southern shore of the Mediterranean, for our countries, we knew it is not going to succeed. The reason was very simple. It was because it was originally set for Eastern Europe. And then, because it had success for Eastern Europe, then is the design to apply to the southern neighborhood. It did not work, and it cannot now. So any southern neighborhood policy approach needs to be specific and needs to really respond to the specificity of the region. And again, it will have to carry the double track of values and real politics.
Thank you very much, everyone. We have reached the end of it. Thank you for your patience, for your participation. And we hope that, especially in the MLC community, the important commission community, at the end, we have some ideas for the future, for other kind of such events, something that when we reach the program, according to your, just one point is that in shaping any policies, in creators, co-ownership and therefore planning is essential. Ask them. Don't answer what they need, ask them. Thank you very much again.